So this is the second half of lesson 1. I want to make sure that I break the videos up so you're not watching more than 5 or 6 minutes at a time. And that way, if you need to go back and review, they're chunked by topic. So the topic of our first video was solving equations. Our second video will cover solving inequalities as well as word problems. So our first inequality, I'm going to combine my like terms. Remember, when you multiply or divide an inequality by a negative, you have to flip the inequality symbol. So what I try and do is always keep the coefficient of my variable positive. So I'm going to subtract 8a from both sides. Subtract 8 from both sides to isolate that variable, and divide both sides by 5. So when I graph my inequality, what I like to do is put my solution in the center, my -2, and at least one number off to either side. The or equal to means we have a closed circle. It means the answer is part of the solution. So if we substitute -2 back into the original inequality, it will make it a true statement. And be careful, because in this inequality, our a is on the right-hand side. So we have to kind of read it backwards in order to figure out which way to shade. It says a is less than or equal to -2 as I read right to left my solution. So the less than means I'm going to shade off to the left. And as I was going through that, the next song that came on was We Built This City by Starship. All right, my next inequality, I have distributive property on both sides. And in this case, I want to go ahead and distribute, because if I divide both sides by 9, that's going to give me a fraction that I have to distribute, and I'd rather not do that. So I'm going to go ahead and distribute my integers instead. And some of you may recognize what's going on right here. Some of you may need to go ahead and combine your x's. So I'm going to add 18x to both sides, which cancels on the left and the right-hand side. And my inequality says 27 is less than 30. This is a true statement, which means all real numbers will make this inequality true. If you were going to graph this, you could put any numbers you want to on the number line. I would probably just use the center of my number line starting at 0, and then the whole number line would be shaded. I typically wouldn't ask you to graph a special solution like all real numbers. It's not a real exciting graph. In our last example, we're going to use the UPS check method to solve our problem. So what we're looking at is stacking cups on a shelf, and we need to know how many cups will fit on a 14-inch shelf. So my first step is to understand what the question is asking. And I'm going to go through and pick out information that I feel is essential to solve the problem. I do need to know that one cup is 3.5 inches. Each additional cup raises the stack by 1/4 inch for a total, and I have a total space of 14 inches. And the question is, how many cups? So now I'm going to plan, and looking at kind of how I jotted my notes for understanding, I almost see an equation. So I'm just going to go ahead and formalize my equation. My first cup is 3.5 inches plus 1/4 inch per additional cup. Per means multiplied. Total, of course, means equals. And then once I solve this, I'll know how many cups. That's what my variable is standing for. So I'm going to subtract 3.5 from both sides, which gives me 10.5. And to cancel multiplying by 1/4, I'm going to multiply both sides by 4. 10 times 4 is 40. Half times 4 is 2. 40 plus 2 is 42. Now remember, this was the additional cups that I could put on top of the first cup on the shelf. So that would give me a total of 43 cups will fit on the shelf. So that answers the question. And the last thing that I need to do is check. Before you just blindly substitute it back into the equation that you wrote and solved, I want you to think about, does your answer make sense? Could you fit 43 cups on a shelf? It sounds like a lot initially when you think about it, but if we go back to the information we're given, we're starting with 3.5 inches, and we're only raising our stack by 1/4 of an inch each time. So 2 more cups will get me up to 4 inches. 4 more cups will get me up to the next inch. So I'm adding 4 cups per inch for about 10 more inches. So it does, number sense-wise, seem to make sense to me. So I'm gonna say something like, just to show that I checked, 4 cups per inch for about 10 inches. That does make sense. You're gonna add about 40 cups, plus you have the 2 to get up to 4 inches and the 1 initial cup, which gives us that total of 43. And the last piece is you try problems. So what I would like you to do is try these problems, solve the equation, the inequality, and then answer the question using our UPS check method. Bring your answers with you to class tomorrow. When we start class, we'll have some peer instruction time where you and your group members will discuss your answers. If your answers don't match, you will decide how to come up with the correct answer. And then we'll go over them as a class. So have a great evening, and I will see you tomorrow.